Oftentimes when we get towards the beginning of a season, we start to think about handcuffs. But what we wanted to do on today's video is to tell you those must-own handcuffs you should go out and get right now in
That's right.
Dynasty. They're relatively cheap. We'll tell you the price. And if their RB1 on their team were to go down, they would likely get a massive, massive workload in their offense. That's what we're doing today, trying to find you those needles in the haystack for relatively cheap prices. Do us a massive favor. Drop a like to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And I want you to
Come on.
comment down below right now before you watch the video. Tell me the most important handcuff in Dynasty right now. And if you want my rankings, Badake's rankings from all your favorite YouTube creators.
That's right.
Dynasty, one quarterback, Superflex. Use our code LAND, LAND at flockfantasy.com/land. That will get you 30% off your membership. Not only do you get rankings from us, you get everyone's articles, you get bonus content, bonus videos,
100%.
draft guides. And if you sign up to the Mother Flocker tier, Badake and I will grade your team on a live stream. Okay, so why don't we get this thing going? Four players that we're going to talk about. I'll lead us off, and I think, honestly, every name that we're bringing today, I would wholeheartedly agree with. I'm excited about this video, and I think it could bring some good value.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first handcuff I think you guys should be going out and getting, and I actually thought long and hard about this because I wanted to find a player that I don't think is being discussed really much at all, and it's going to be very cheap. Let's talk about Keontae Ingram. Okay, my ranking, he's currently my running back 69. According to the community, he's the running back 74. And if you think about it, there's some upside here in Arizona. If you have James Conner specifically, this is a must. You need Keontae Ingram if you have James Conner. If you look at James Conner's injury history from 2017 to 2023, it looks like a grocery shopping list. I mean, you could probably see it on the screen now. I mean, it is a vast, just is down there. And I couldn't get all of it on there, but you guys can see as much as I could fit. But from 2019 to 2022, he missed or left the game early 21 times due to injury. Yeah. Almost 32% of his games, he has been unavailable in that time span. Draft Shark, which does a good job of trying to recall all the injuries, and they have a predictor, an algorithm that they use. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But Draft Shark has his chance of injury in 2023 at 83%. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to be a significant injury. They just think there's a highly likely chance he will miss games. Yep. They project him to miss 2.5 games. Last year, he missed 4 games alone. Regardless, you need Ingram if you have Conner as a handcuff. And if you think about it, outside of Conner, there's really no depth on this team. I think the Cardinals were one of those teams that Badake and I really anticipated drafting a running back. Yeah. And they gave us the old little ookie dookies, and they didn't draft one. Right now, it's James Conner, Keontae Ingram, and then Corey Clement, Tyson Williams. I mean, if Conner goes down, you could be looking at a weekly flex option for Ingram based on volume alone. Like, who knows what he could do once he gets that shot. And if you look at Keontae Ingram's profile out of USC, he actually, this was a running back that I really liked as a sleeper last year. And I remember talking about him in last year's draft. Didn't get much opportunity here in year 1, but he could be stepping into opportunity in year 2. Is he going to be a superstar in the NFL? No, but we're not really looking for those right now. We're trying to find those needle in the haystack type of values. His relative athletic score was at 8.69 out of 10. That ranked 215th out of 1,632 running backs from 1987 to 2022. If you look at his size, great size for a running back who can handle a big workload. 6 foot, 221, a great frame. So if Conner goes down, you're not worried about, oh, is he only going to be the pass catcher? No, he'll get a good amount of carries too. And then look at his production in college. Bijan really forced him to transfer from Texas to USC for his final season in college, but he was pretty efficient those 3 years he was at Texas. He averaged 5.3 yards per attempt and put up over 2,300 all-purpose yards and 17 total touchdowns his 3 years at Texas. Like, he was pretty good, pretty efficient. He just wasn't Bijan Robinson. His last year in college, he transferred to USC, and he had his best year, putting up over 1,000 all-purpose yards, 5 touchdowns on 5.8 yards per attempt. Last year, sorry, the last year he was at USC, that was good for 41.7% of USC's total rushing offense. 41.7% of USC's rushing offense. That's crazy. That's a ridiculous number. Over his 4-year collegiate career, he put up 89 receptions. I think that should be shocking to a lot of people who haven't actually, dove deep into his profile.
Right.
89 receptions for a career in college is not very common. That's about 22 per year over a 4-year span. He was very impressive through the year at his time in Texas, at his time in USC. So again, is he going to be a superstar? No, but he is one of those guys where if his running mate goes down, I think he'll have a role regardless. Let's just start there. But if Connor goes down, he could be a must start based off volume alone. And his price is very, very cheap. Players that you could currently send away to go get him or at least start a conversation with, right? Again, it's not a finishing line. It's a starting line.
Yeah.
Sean Tucker, James Robinson, Gus Edwards, Kyron Williams, KJ Hamler, David Bell. Right now, according to picks, he's worth the 402. So go out and get you some Keontae Ingram because it's going to cost you nothing. And if things go your way, then you got a nice little upside play there in Ingram as a handcuff.
Yeah, Keontae Ingram, definitely a very interesting prospect there. Definitely a guy I'm trying to pick up off waiver wise. I've been looking through every single league because he's also might be available out there.
It's a good point. He could be on your waivers. Go check.
Yeah. All right, my first handcuff. I bought him as a sleeper to target, but I think this is probably one of the best handcuffs right now, I think, coming out of this rookie draft, and that's probably Tank Bigsby. According to the community, he's an RB40. In my ranking, he's RB39. And there are so many question marks coming into this fantasy season regarding Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. What is that usage going to look like? And I think there's no doubt that Travis Etienne is going to be the third down passing back in this offense. But as the days go by, I keep getting convinced that Tank could see more of a bigger role than just maybe a goal line opportunity. And this is by no means a anti-Etienne take. I am a true believer that Travis Etienne probably deserves to handle this full workload, can be the first and second down back, third down back. I think this is more of anything that we need to be ready for anything and everything that's going to be happening in this offense, in this backfield specifically with Travis Etienne. So in our last video, I kind of brought some stats about Doug Peterson and his running back history, but I don't want to lean too much on that. But what I want to say in the summary of that, I really encourage you to go watch that video, is that Doug Peterson since 2017 has always had a rotation of backs. Whether that is the main back, whether LeGarrette Blount, Miles Sanders, Josh Adams. Obviously, these guys aren't the Travis Etiennes, but there's always have been a rotation of running backs in the backfield for Doug Peterson. And someone that he's bringing in like Tank, I think could potentially see more than just a goal line workload coming into this season. And once again, not an anti-Travis Etienne take, a more of like, we need to be ready for what's going to be happening. And then you kind of go into the depth chart, right? I mean, what does the depth chart really tell us from this backfield and this offense? And it's that Tank is easily the second guy in this backfield. I mean, Jermichael Hastings was there last year. He's not somebody that scares me. Dearness Johnson, they bring in from the Browns. He's not somebody that really scares me. And then Snoop Connor as well. All these running backs aren't guys that, in my opinion, are going to beat a guy from Auburn, 6 foot, 210 pounds, who has carried the workload over there, over 900 yards on the ground. On the ground for Tank Bigsby, over 179 attempts on the ground as well. He's not the best pass catching back. He's not a guy that you're going to rely on, but that's why you have Travis Etienne, right? So the vision of this offense, the way I'm seeing it, I'm getting more and more convinced day in and day out, is that potentially, maybe at a point in time, Tank Bigsby can be the first and second down guy. Well, Travis Etienne will be the third down guy. Now, do I want that to happen for Travis Etienne? Absolutely not. I have Travis Etienne as in many of my fantasy leagues. But once again, we need to be ready for that. And we can't really say what's going to happen. I do believe Travis Etienne is their better back. But Tank brings in the size. I literally said in my scouting reports for Tank, he is a tank. He's a big body guy that's going to get you those extra yardage on the goal line or wherever you need them to be. And we saw a lot of times last year where they were in the goal lines under the 5, and then Trevor Lawrence was doing a QB sneak, right? And I think they want to. I think they want to step away from that, and that's why potentially they bring in Tank, who can take over that to help protect Trevor Lawrence, maybe even Travis Etienne in down the road with injury history. So the price that I'm willing to pay for Tank, I mean, obviously right now he's going anywhere from the mid to early third in your rookie drafts right now, but players going around, according, like Zach said, there's a starting point, not a finish line. Players going around him to, in the Dynasty community. Tajay Spears, Rashad Penny, Khalil Herbert. I'm very interested to start conversations about all those guys. Somebody like Tajay Spears, who doesn't have a ACL, doesn't have a knee, and people are still drafting Tajay over Tank. Let's do a swap. Get some more from Tajay Spears if you possibly can. So I would be trying to go get Tank Bigsby if I possibly can before the season starts. If I'm a Travis Etienne owner, for sure.
Yeah. We were in a real draft 2 days ago, and I got Tank Bigsby 302 to handcuff Travis Etienne. So I'm definitely all aboard getting him as a handcuff. I mean, you know me. I've been that Etienne guy for a long time.
100%.
I will just say quickly, because I agree that, like I said at the beginning of the video, I love all these handcuffs. I followed your advice. Like, I have Bigsby on my team to handcuff Etienne.
Yeah.
But I will just say just quickly, I think one thing that I'm hearing a lot is that Tank Bigsby is this bigger running back. A lot of people don't realize that Travis Etienne is heavier than Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
Like, Tank Bigsby's 210, Travis Etienne's 215. So I think that Etienne will be fine. Bigsby will have a role. I agree. Yeah. But I'm just going to say just quickly, I just don't think that, like, Bigsby, and I think you and I are on the same page on this. I don't think Bigsby is like this, you must sell Etienne. You must sell Etienne. No, he is like, you need him as a handcuff.
Yeah, exactly. And, one last thing before you move on. It's not about how big Travis Etienne is technically big, and I saw that. I think it's more of like the punch that Tank actually brings in between the tackles.
Sure.
I'm not saying Travis Etienne doesn't bring that, but I guess they don't want to utilize him in that way, right? And they want to risk aversion, especially with injuries. Yeah. So I think that's why they kind of brought in a guy like that. I think they're a great
complement to each other.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
All right, the second handcuff that I've talked about before, but staying true to the video, I wanted to bring the best option here. And I really do think that one of the best handcuffs right now in Dynasty is Chase Brown. My RB48, I'm trying to figure out if I'm way too high or if the community's way too low. He's my RB48. According to the community, he's RB65. So I'm trying to figure out where the disconnect is there. Maybe I'm ridiculously high, but when you start getting into those late 40s, what running backs do you really want over a young Chase Brown? I mean, like, I don't get it, but there's some upside here. Firstly, we've talked about Joe Mixon a lot this offseason. We've been people who have told you, go buy him, go buy him, go buy him. He's so cheap. If he gets out of the NFL draft without them drafting someone the first 3 rounds, then you could have a great starter on your hands. There's just a lot of sorry, words are hard. There's a lot of uncertainty around Mixon this offseason, right? Talks about the team maybe cutting him. They wanted to save money, got to sign Burrow, Higgins, the situation that happened at his home, the aggravating menacing charges. In short, this team just wasn't very committal, was very non-committal to him this entire offseason. And I'm not suggesting Joe Mixon is going to go away, but I'm suggesting that there's a scenario here in which Brown becomes a startable asset in fantasy football. And that's what we're looking for. Those little diamonds in the rough, situations that could play out. And if you look at Chase Brown, let's talk about just Chase for a second before we talk about this team. In 2022, Chase Brown had the second most rushing attempts in college football. And you might think, okay, yeah, big deal. He had the most rushing attempts in college football. If you're not someone who follows college football in depth, you might not realize how impressive that is. Because it's not like the NFL where there's 32 teams. There's hundreds and hundreds of teams. So let me say that again. Chase Brown was second in rushing attempts of 674 tracked running backs in college football. Okay? He can handle a workload. In fact, he contributed to over 65% of Illinois' total rushing offense. 65%. 25% of the rushing offense. That is genuinely unheard of. They asked Chase Brown, can we rely on you? And he said, yes, you absolutely can. Now, Joe Mixon's probably going to be back. I imagine that they're going to have some sort of contract renegotiation because Mixon's options are not very big at this point, right? Limited options. So it's going to be Joe Mixon's backfield if he's back. But don't forget that there was another huge part of this backfield that is confirmed gone. You know, there's questions around Mixon, but another running back that was very vital to this team is already gone. Confirmed. That is Samaje Perine. Samaje was on the field for most of the third downs and obvious passing scenarios for this team. He had 51 targets last year. He contributed to 24% of the team's total rushing attempts, as well as 26% of their rushing yards. Mixon was at 53% in both of those categories. Samaje finished as the RB34. And what we're looking at here is, what is he worth? What is Chase Brown worth if Joe Mixon goes down? Well, Samaje Perine from weeks 11 to 13 was the starter because Mixon was injured. In those 3 weeks, he was the RB2, and he averaged the RB2 in fantasy football, overall and in points per game. So if Mixon goes down, and he's had think about it, guys. There's like been one season he's been fully healthy. There's been a lot of injuries to Joe Mixon over the years. If he goes down, imagine he goes down in the playoffs this year, and you don't have Chase Brown as his handcuff. You don't. What if you have him and you don't have Joe Mixon, and then you're in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you get a starter for this team? You know, Chase Brown becomes a top 15 play every week if Joe Mixon is injured. And look, again, it's Chase Brown, like Keontae Ingram. Are these running backs that are generational? They're going to stop these franchises from drafting running backs in future drafts? No, that's, again, not what we're looking for here. We're trying to find those needle in the haystacks. And regardless, Chase Brown, in his Samaje Perine role, which is what I see him playing, is attached to a top 10 offense in the NFL. All it takes is for one injury for him to be a superstar for fantasy purposes. Let's look at the price because it's really, really cheap. Right now, you can send away Tyler Algier. I mean, look, I would rather have Chase Brown than Tyler Algier right now. I know Tyler Algier was super efficient. That offense as a whole, most running backs were efficient in that offense last year in Atlanta. It was a very efficient rushing offense. Not anywhere else, but just rushing. Send Tyler Algier away for Chase Brown because right now you're dealing with Bijan Robinson in front of you or Joe Mixon. You decide what you think is more important. Devin Singletary, I would send him away. Kenneth Gainwell, Tyler Boyd, Cedric Tillman, DJ Chark. Again, just names to start a conversation with. What's the bench piece on your team? Start a conversation with it. Currently going around the 301 to the 308 in Dynasty rookie drafts. So, you know, if you haven't done your rookie drafts, try and prioritize him in the early third round. But I think you should be going and handcuffing Chase Brown because it could look really good for you later on. And I love the next handcuff that Badake is going to bring because when I saw it on the script, I was like, damn, that's probably my favorite one. So who you got first here?
Yeah. My next handcuff here for a lot of people, and do everything you possibly can, I would say, to get this guy personally. Jerome Ford from the Cleveland Browns. He, in the community, is RB64. He, in my rankings, RB54. So I'm really high on him. I would say clearly higher than the community. But let me remind you who Jerome Ford is, okay? He was drafted in the 5th round with 156th pick in the 2022, weird enough to say, 2022 draft. 5'11", 210 pounds, over 1,000 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, 19 touchdowns, and he also got some work in the air. 4-star recruit out of Alabama. He originally started at Alabama, and that was behind, this crazy I want to say elite list, but Damian Harris, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson, he was behind a couple of good running backs, but a 4-star recruit coming out of college with speed, explosiveness, power, ran a 4.46 at the NFL Combine that year. At one point, he was my RB2 before the pre-draft rankings, the pre-draft process, and obviously with him getting the draft capital, that wasn't the case, and then you kind of have to readjust. He lands in probably one of the worst spots at the time with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But, I guess great segue with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and the potential opportunity now. Kareem Hunt no longer on this team. He's a free agent. Dearness Johnson now with the Jags, as I was talking about earlier with Tank Bigsby. The pathway for Ford is open. It's wide open, and there's an opportunity for him to get the work in the ground and in the air. He can take over that Kareem Hunt role. And, the past couple of years, Kareem Hunt wasn't an amazing fantasy option, but when Nick Chubb is truly is out of the lineup with injury, you know, they really lean on the second back, whoever that is normally. And in 2020, we saw that when Nick Chubb missed probably about 6-7 games with that injury, Kareem Hunt was RB10, averaging 13.7 fantasy points per game. And then obviously when Nick Chubb is on, when Nick Chubb is on the field, Kareem Hunt still has a decent snap percentage and workload. In 2022, he was averaging 42% of the snaps. Ford can easily take over that workload without a doubt. Once again, coming from college, being the lead back, having the opportunity, and then being behind, like I said and mentioned, the Najee Harris, Damian Harris, these guys that have handled the workload that he kind of seen and taken in coming from Alabama. So I think that is one really good part about Jerome Ford that you guys should be looking into. The second part, I would say, is the offense going to change. You know, this past 3-4 years, this has been a run-heavy offense without a doubt, right? Obviously, with Baker Mayfield, with all these quarterback carousels that was going on. But insert Deshaun Watson, who has publicly said the past year that he wants to have more explosive plays in the airs, that we need to open up the passing game, that this offense will look a lot different in 2023. And we saw that just in the offseason. Obviously, they extend David Njoku. They bring in Elijah Moore. They draft Cedric Tillman. Donovan Peoples-Jones kind of took another step here, right? So, and we saw this offense really open up for Deshaun, or really for Jacoby, and that's exactly what's going to happen. This offense is going to take a next step. Now, do I see Jerome Ford becoming this massive guy? No, but he's going to have a workload and an opportunity if Nick Chubb does go down. And not only that, I can easily see him being the third down guy who is a decent pass blocker, one who can catch the ball out of the backfield too. And I would say I think they will prioritize him over Nick Chubb as a pass catching back, and we can see an opportunity where he can grow into that third down role. So that's honestly Jerome Ford, once again, one of the best guys, the guys I loved coming out of college. Just unfortunate he didn't get the draft capital. Some players going around him. Right now, he's either on waiver wires, or I'm happy to send any 4th round pick for Jerome Ford. Even then, once again, you can potentially go get him on waiver wires. But players right now, according to the community, that are getting drafted around him, that I would rather have a Joe Everett, an older tight end, is Isaiah Spiller. I would rather have Jerome Ford over him, a Zach Ertz, obviously with Trey McBride coming in, and then Greg Dulcich. With Kyler Murray not being here for the first half of the season, once again, it's a starting line, not a finish line here with conversations. So definitely check that out. But once again, Jerome Ford, probably one of the best handcuffs coming into the season in 2023.
Yeah, I love Jerome Ford. Picked him up in our home league. Our home league's a little sleepy though.
Yeah, I was sleeping. I thought I had him. When I
picked him up in our home league off the waivers for free.
I thought I had him for sure, and that's why I didn't think about it, because I did go and look through all the leagues. I was like, I need to go pick him up. Yeah, and then I saw that I think all of his in our leagues that are more competitive, I think he's gone. But yeah, so in some of your home leagues, people who are a little sleepy, you might be able to get him for free. Yeah. But yeah, I'm all aboard. You and I have been back and forth on like just hyping his name up. I looked back and I was like, I remember bringing him January 21st, 2023. We had a video called Dynasty Buy Lows. He was one of them for me. And at that point, I think he was like in the RB 70s. But that was a good video looking back. I brought Herbert, Jerome Ford. You brought JT and J.K. Dobbins. Yeah.
So, hey, at least we got something right. Do us a massive favor. Drop a like on the video to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. And we'll see you guys in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.